Wait a second. All right. Thank you guys for being part of this session, the Huawei Developer Competition webinar. This is the first one that we'll be having of, there's a couple that also lined up. And the aim is to introduce you guys to, with this one, is to introduce you guys to the Huawei Developer Competition. And then also a bit of introduction into Huawei mobile services and just a bit of app gallery. So do feel free to ask any questions, be it technical, be it non-technical in relation to the competition, in relation to HMS or the app gallery. So in the call, we've got Jacqueline and we've got Bosco and we've got Ntutuga. Ntutuga from Huawei. It seems Tutuko is having some bit of connection challenges. So, Bosco, I'll just hand over to you. The first thing we just want to talk about is the competition. What is the competition about? How does it work? Just as much information with regarding to the competition. How do people enter? Tutuko, are you with us?
Yes.
Awesome stuff. So yes, the first part we just want to touch base is just maybe run us through the competition. How does it work? What's the competition about? And just as much information with regards to the competition. Then you can just go back to touching base on the HMS and also the app gallery. But I'll hand over now from to Tutugo and Bosco.
Bosco, I think you can tell them about the prizes for the competition and just the HTC in general.
Okay, so in this competition, everyone can see the dashboard. I'm publish the competition URL as for the. Let me share my screen.
Yes, so while he's sharing his screen, if anyone wants to ask any questions, please feel free to put the question on the chat. I see Bosco has already put up the link to the competition. So just comment on the chat and then we'll respond there as well.
Yeah, so first of all, so thank you everyone to coming here to talking about the Huawei's developer competition. So if you're interested to put your applications on our Huawei official application store, we call it App Gallery. You can go through here to do the registrations and fill in your information, leave your information here. And then we have a professional technology guy. We'll keep contact with you to talk about your applications to onboard on our App Gallery. And like we said, what is the prize we can win there? So first of all, if you sign up these competitions, we will get you for free to $200 to Huawei public cloud. So the Huawei public cloud, like Amazon, the AWS, the voucher machine in the cloud service. So if you are a company as a competition guy, you will win the 4,000 to the public cloud. You can put your applications in the virtual machine on the cloud. So if you click this, then you can see this is the prize you can got a win. So first, if you get the number one, number one, you will receive the 120,000 the rand in this competition. The 2 to 3, you will win the 16,000 as a competition. 4 to 10, you will win the 15,000, including the tax in this competition. And if you win to 11 to 20, so you will get the 30,000, the cash in these prizes. By the way, we also have any surprises prizes if you win this competition. So how can be able to win this competition? So before you join this competition, you need to integrate our HMS to the and upload your applications on our app gallery. So what is HMS? The HMS, we can create our because we're facing the American problem, we create our own capability to helping the developer create your functions. Take example, the Google Map. So if you application using the Google Map, you can't access Google Map on our Huawei HMS devices. So you need to extend of your Google Map to our Huawei Map to helping your application to keep serving and keep going on in our Huawei HMS devices consumer. So we provide the same kinds of all of the capability, same kinds of like Google to provide the developer, including the map push notifications, location, and analytics. A lot of HMS kit we are get ready from all of the developer. So this is how it works in our Huawei competition. But if you want to know about more what is the HMS, I believe that the Antutu will help you to introduce what is the HMS and what is the HMS kit. To in the future, if you want to do the HMS kit, Antutu also will helping to finish your integration as well. So Antutu, could you mind to do some introduction on the HMS?
Okay.
So, while you set up, if there's anyone who would like to ask any questions related to the competition, please feel free to ask the questions. You can maybe also throw them in the chat, and then we'll just pick them up.
Hi, everyone. Just to give you a bit of background, so HMS is more, what it stands for is Huawei Mobile Services, and it's basically the services that are, initially they were just to benchmark against what Google offers most of their manufacturers for the Android operating system. So for example, things like your Chrome browser, Google Maps, in particular for developers, it would be things like your push notifications, your Firebase login and register services. So since we've been having more or less that trouble with having to license off Google's services, we have had to build our own, which is Huawei Mobile Services. And for Google, it's Google Mobile Services, which is GMS. So yeah, I hope you don't get like confused when I say GMS, HMS. And yeah, just to give you a context in terms of like the smartphone revenue share in terms of how many Huawei mobile devices, meaning the opportunity for developers who develop for Huawei devices, handsets for now mostly. So this data is based on the small smartphone market, and as of like half of the year, initially Huawei became the #1 manufacturer vendor across the whole world in terms of like smartphone stuff. So I guess means more users for developers to tap into. And in terms of like the number of smartphones, it's been more than 15 million smartphones globally, which accounts for more than like 63% of the Huawei phones having to have like 5G and all that kind of stuff. And just to bring it into the South African context specifically, we've had more or less like 6 million devices that have been actually bought. And in terms of app gallery number of users, monthly active users is 2.6 million. So that is more or less the numbers that developers would be working with when they're looking in terms of how many people could possibly download my app, or how many people am I exposing my app to. And looking into HMS, which is the services that have been introduced from last year, August, you have the HMS core services underneath here, at the bottom here, which are basically services up until the 2020 Q1, which was probably around your June, January, February, March. These services were basically benchmarking against what Google already offers in the operating system for Android for devices like your Samsung or your Xiaomi and other devices. So things like your sign in with Google, which is in this case is their account kit, your AdMobi or your ads kits, those would be the kits that actually are alternative kits for the new Huawei devices which don't have Google Play services and can't run your things like your AdMobi or your Google Play Store and Google Maps or your push notification services from actually Firebase or your safety detect kit from Google Analytics. The services down here, those are the services that actually are offered by Huawei to help developers port their apps from the Google Play Store environment to the Huawei App Gallery. And the services that are here at the top, these ones are specific to Huawei devices. These mainly because some of them of the hardware that is being used on the devices, for example, the processing chips. For example, your high AI requires certain Huawei chips, your Kirin 9 and above, to actually work and stuff like that. And with things like health kits or high health, they need your things like your wearable devices or your smart scale, smart treadmill, and that kind of stuff. And since June, July, there has been HMS Core 5 that has been released, which is now basically more focused on having to help developers tap into the hardware capabilities that the new Huawei devices offer. And with the new machine learning processing chips, it helps with making the development much easier. So these kits are more focused on that aspect, as well as with having to integrate hardware more into applications and stuff like that. Any questions on this slide? Not really.
Isn't a question? There seems to be a question from Dennis. Says I was allowed to video, not to use Huawei.
Could you please repeat that question? Can you hear me?
Says we allowed to use Android Studio, or is it a must to use Huawei Quick App IDE?
So in terms of actually the IDEs to use, for guys who are creating cross-platform applications, you can still use your Visual Studio Code or Sublime Text, whichever IDE text editor you might be using. For native Android development, you can still use Android Studio because the operating system that's running on the new Huawei phones is still Android. The only difference is that you don't have Google Play services. You just have Huawei mobile services working on their actual phone. So that is the only difference. But in terms of the operating system itself, it is still Android. So you still use your Kotlin if you're using Kotlin for developing an Android, or use Java, as well as with your other cross-platform frameworks. You still use those naturally. It's just that when you import on your Gradle file, you're just importing the App Gallery Connect or HMS Core services, and that's the only difference. Yeah, hope I answered that question already. And in terms of like having to merge the new Huawei mobile services with the hardware that Huawei has been manufacturing and will still continue to make, you have your HMS, which encompasses mostly your software, which is your Huawei browser, Huawei Music, App Gallery, Huawei Video, the -1 screen, which is Huawei Assistant, and you have your mobile cloud where your users are either storing the stuff on the cloud or you're doing cloud functions with your apps, and you have Huawei ID, which allows users to sign in with their Huawei ID on the apps. And this app ecosystem actually is working together with the hardware ecosystem, which basically taps into your tablets, your PCs, your smart devices, smart screen speakers, and you can use apps like HiLink to link most of your ecosystem from your actual laptop to your phone and your smartwatch and your smart screen, to also using your Huawei Share for sharing files from between devices, from your phone to your laptop, or your tablet to your phone as well. And yeah, so far we've had most of the top apps in SA having to join App Gallery, so having to have more apps which are local and are actually contributing to users' livelihoods would be great. And yeah, so this is basically showing that when developers actually get to jump onto App Gallery and we help them do promotions and advertising for their apps, it helps them increase their awareness as well as their download rates and installations for either their quick apps or their actual native apps. And yeah, just to get a bit more technical, I would like to yeah, put your attention onto this. So this is the actual developer website for developers to actually interact with App Gallery Connect, which is where they actually uploaded their apps onto the App Gallery store, as well as if they need to integrate any services or APIs. This is the console where they have to click into, and then they can be able to enable those services for actually having to use either your Huawei ID for users having to sign in with Huawei ID, or your maps or location services. You enable them onto your App Gallery Connect. In terms of the services that are available for developers, this is basically the website where they can come and get documentation for using different types of services. So you have your app services, which are things like signing in with Huawei ID, your location kit or your map or push services, and then you have your AI services, which allow you to do things like text recognition or facial recognition, text to speech, that kind of thing, as well as media services, which allow you to actually connect audio between different kinds of devices. Yeah. And also,
sorry, I said we lost you there a bit, but you can continue.
Okay. You can hear me now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, and you also have your smart devices, which are either your wearables or your other smart screens, which are provided by Huawei, and you're also able to use those APIs to actually either share a screen or actually interact between different devices. And you have your system APIs, which you can use, which allow you to actually do more of sharing stuff with other devices, for example, your wireless kit and your nearby service kit. And you have things like your security, which are for local fingerprint recognition or facial detection, as well as safety detect if the phone has been rooted or not. And you can also do things with graphics, for graphic services if you are doing computer gaming and all that kind of stuff. And some of the questions that developers might have is actually in terms of support. You can check out either the GitHub page or Stack Overflow, the developer forum, or you can send me an email when you have like questions about how to integrate something, or if you're having an error or a certain actual service that you're trying to use from Huawei. And as you can see, in terms of the resources, we have both for native Android as well as cross-platform. And you can either get the references to the APIs themselves, which are the classes, or the guides in terms of how to integrate the sample code when you actually want to try and run it on your own machine, or you can just download the plugins when you're actually doing the actual integration. And yeah, basically this website will help you navigate through most of what you need to do for your integration, and well as some of the help. And for the forum, you just have to come to community, and on the Huawei Developer Forum, it will take you to the actual forum where developers are posting articles or questions probably almost every day in terms of like having to get help. And yeah, in terms of the technical part, I think that's all I will be covering for now. And if you have any questions, you can just bring them up now.
All right, and there's a question from Dennis. His second question, he says, I think you answered his question, the previous one about the Android Studio. So he says, does that mean we cannot also use Firebase for database management?
So for database management, you would be actually advised that you actually use Huawei Cloud, the cloud store, which you can actually find when it comes to App Gallery Connect, and that would be the Cloud DB, which you would use instead of the Firebase database. So I know that Firebase has REST APIs as well as the native SDK. If you're using the actual native SDK, then the native SDK won't work because it will require Google Play services on the actual device, as it will be referencing most of its stuff on the GMS part of the device, which does not exist on the new devices. But for if you're using the REST APIs, in most cases, your REST APIs will work. For example, if you're using Firebase authentication, but you're using the REST API method, then that will work and it won't give you any problems. But if you try to use the actual SDK, which you have to download through Maven and Gradle, then it will actually not build, because the actual app phone does not actually use Google Play services.
All right, Dennis, hope that answers your question. Does anyone else have any question regarding to what took us through? So how easy is, or how intense is the process of, let's say you've got an app already on the Android store, how easy is it for you to like port it to the app gallery?
So there is more or less like two types of apps that you might have, right? So you might have apps that use either an SDK from Google itself, or an SDK that, or they use an SDK that does depend on some of the Google services. If that is the case, then having to do HMS integration is more or less a must for you as a developer, because most of those functionalities won't work if you just upload your app onto App Gallery. For the new devices, your app just won't work. And if your app does not have any dependencies from Google mobile services, then you can literally just upload your app as it is onto App Gallery Connect, and it will still work just fine on the new Huawei devices, because it doesn't use any Google related services. And for integration, where maybe your app uses Google Maps, for example, if maybe you have an Texify-like app which uses the Maps service, then you probably want to integrate your map kit, which will take, in most cases, 2 days if you already know the use cases that you're going to be using for your application. And that is just purely development time. It can take you around about 2 days, especially if you've used Google Maps already. It might actually take you a day, because most of the classes that are available on the Google Maps API are the very same classes that are available on the Huawei Maps thingy SDK. The only difference is that the package names that you use to import them on your Gradle file are different. But in terms of, for example, the location provider, it's still the same implementation that you would have done on your Google Play services side. So it actually is not very intense, and doesn't usually take more than a week to integrate one service and test it out and make sure it works properly.
All right.
Yes.
And then from past experience, just for the guys who are planning on taking part in the competition, what have been some of the challenges that, like the standard basic challenges that other developers have come back to you and said, yeah, just to give, just some bit of direction and guidance, what are some of the common challenges that the guys have encountered?
I think like in terms of when you don't really like understand some of the workarounds, because I know I've been looking through the documentation myself and I use it when I am developing. Sometimes it can get confusing, and when that happens, I guess having to either pop a question here on the forum or send me an email would help you resolve most of those queries very quickly. Because yeah, when you most of the stuff, especially for things like your Xamarin or your Cordova, they are plugins which started having support around your May, June. So even the documentation itself is not that great. So when you find things like that, I guess having to get in touch with other people who are developing or myself, it will help you resolve those issues much quicker, because some of them are not things which you can just go on Google and be like, can I just solve this error? Because even the Stack Overflow, which we do have, is also still has not a lot of questions that have been answered yet or that have been asked by developers. So yeah, I guess asking for help as quick as possible, because some of the developers in the previous competition, they more or less left the integration part of the competition to the last part of their app and didn't really know how to navigate through their documentation and didn't seek help in time. So they had to like miss some of their submissions. But the guys who were very inquiry about the errors that they were getting, I think they were able to finish their integration as well as get help as quickly as possible.
All right. So there's a long question from Dennis. So if you can have a look at it on the chat, I'll read it out for you. He's asking two questions. Maybe let me start with the challenge. So he's saying, I saw the competition last week, so I didn't register because I'm confused on the registration page. They require a package name for an app. Do we have to upload the app on App Gallery before 30 November, or is it just registration before 30 November?
You have to have uploaded the app before the 15th of November, but registration is probably until the 30th of November. The package name is required because I guess when you upload your app on App Gallery itself, for example, the APK will be read by the system and it will pick out the package name that you need, that your app actually has. So with that, when you actually specify initially, they just want to have that package name reserved.
All right, Dennis, that was your second question, but his first question says, since we have to use Huawei Cloud for, since we have to use Huawei Cloud for database management, seems like it cannot work on Android Studio. So is it advisable for not to use Android Studio, since Android Studio do not have Huawei Cloud plugins or tools?
So actually, in terms of I'll just share my screen just now. In terms of plugins for HMS services, you have two types of plugins. One is the HMS verification plugin, which just verifies whether your app has integrated any of the services successfully. So it does not have a specific service which it looks for, but it just checks that if your project has Huawei services integrated? Are they actually integrated successfully or not? So for example, this is where you would find the plugin for HMS core verification, and you can just say start, and then it'll let you know that this part of the project has been added. These have not been configured for this particular project, and there's also still a few things that have not been set, which you probably need to make sure are set on App Gallery Connect before you can actually release your app. And then you also have the HMS Toolkit, which helps you with a number of things. So there's Coding Assistant, there's Coding Assistant, which helps you with the integration part of your API, and it gives you a step-by-step guide. So it actually shows up here on the HMS API helper, and it tells you step 1, this is what you need to do. Step 2, this is what you need to download. And these are the snippets of code that you need to add onto your project. And it helps you integrate, if not all of them, most of the HMS kits. And it is actually compatible. It's just that you need to make sure that you have the right version of Android Studio. It works with the latest version of Android Studio, as well as the version of Gradle, I think from 4.0 and above.
All right, Dennis, I hope that answers both your questions. Is there anyone else with a question? Yeah, is everybody clear on how the competition works? What you need to do to take part in the competition? If you go through the chat, Bosco has shared some links in terms of how to go about it. The first link is about where you can find more information about the competition. The second link is the Huawei developer group. Maybe Ntutuku, can you just tell us more about the developer group? What goes on there? When do you guys have those sessions? And how can people be part of the group?
So for this year, we've been having workshops and trainings every month. It would be the last Thursday of each month, and we've just had our recent last one on the 5th of November. So those are just basically helping developers get more acquainted with the Huawei mobile services. So the training would be specified to focusing on a certain kit or two kits that Huawei mobile services has, and it would help you to see some use cases and also help you through a coding session of how to actually add those services onto your actual application. And with that, it was really just to help developers see how the services are not just a different operating system that you have to develop for, but it's still the same Android operating system. It's just in terms of how you import your stuff. And the Huawei developer group is just to try and get a lot of developers or like-minded developers who are developing apps for the new Huawei phones, as well as the old ones, to help each other basically and have much more of an interaction with each other when it comes to what errors people are getting or what kind of help people need. And yeah, I think it's also going to kick off with its next set of meetups and trainings next year in Jan.
All right. Thanks for that. So if you want to be part of the group, you can go to meetup.com, Huawei Developer Group, South Africa. The link is on the chat. You can have a look at it. Now, there's a question from Oscar. He just wants a bit of clarity. It says, just to be sure, is today the 13th the last day to upload my app?
Probably not, since the date is up until the 15th of December. But I would advise that you do upload it as soon as possible, and then you let me know so that I can talk to the review team to help review your application much quicker, so that if there's any errors or issues that are encountered by the review team, you can then get your app uploaded as soon as possible.
What's the difference between the date of uploading the app and the closing date of the competition? Why is that gap? What's the gap for?
So I think the gap is just in between the registrations and the app uploads. So for the registrations, they also have to go through a verification process, right? And it usually takes 1 day to get your identity verified. Yeah, 1 to 2 days. And with that, it's that you don't want your developers to be registering on maybe like the 14th, and then they have 2 days which their account is under review, and then it gets approved maybe on the 16th, and then the developer is like, but I did register the day before the actual closing date, so can I actually get a leeway to upload my application? So having that gap allows developers to make sure that they have sorted out the registration process and verification part of it. And the last few days is just having to make sure that if they need any assistance from me or Mo or any of the other guys who are Huawei developers, then they can get that as soon as possible before the actual closing date for the app itself.
Okay. Any further questions from everyone or anyone? So if there are no questions regarding that, an overview of the app gallery. How are things looking? What are some of the common apps that we're seeing there?
Okay. I'll just share my screen just now. I'm hoping you can see this side. Can you see the quick app ID?
Yeah.
So this is App Gallery. So after you upload the app on App Gallery Connect and has been approved and reviewed, then this is where you basically most of the users will get your apps, and they are categorized in terms of like the top apps, new games, as well as new apps. And at the bottom here, you'll then have your quick apps. So if you are developing quick apps, there is a section for the users to actually download your quick app directly from the store. And it literally doesn't take more than 2 megabytes in most cases to have a quick app, but at least you know where on the store your quick apps are found. But also, when the user actually searches for an app here, then if it is a quick app, it will show up on the list of apps. And these are more or less the promotions that are being run for this week in terms of the apps which users might be interested in. And this tab right here, the poster, is basically just to help developers promote their apps, and they can actually pay for some of this marketing space, or either get sponsored based on whether they've won the competition or they have a partnership with the App Gallery team. And yeah, basically it also works a bit similar like your Google Play Store, where you have your categories and your users can search based on the categories that you have your app is in and stuff like that. And then you have a list of top apps which have been ranked according to the number of downloads and usage during the week and all that kind of stuff.
All right. And then so I've got my app on the app gallery. What is there a revenue split? Let's say, yeah, my app is a paid app. Is it like revenue split between the developer and Huawei? What does it look like?
Okay, so for your paid apps, either your paid apps or your apps which use your ads kit or the apps which uses your in-app purchases, um, the revenue split for I think for 2019 and 2020, it has been 80-20, meaning that 80% of the revenue would be going to the developer and then 20% would be going to Huawei. And I think at the end of this year, there will be new terms that are going to be released. But at this point, it seems like it's going to be a 70-30 split, which is just a 10% decrease from the 80-20 that the developer was getting initially.
All right. Thanks for that, bro. I don't know if anyone has any other questions. Or maybe is there something that you guys would like us to go through next time, a particular focus? If there's that, please let us know. And then, Tutuku, do you mind sharing your presentation, if you don't mind, or anything that we can just share with the guys to go through? We'll compile the list as well of the links that Bosco has shared there, and we'll share Bosco's email as well. And also, if you also don't mind, Tutuko can share yours for those that just need to be able to reach out to you.
All right.
Cool. Any other questions? All right. It seems like everybody is sorted. Yeah. Otherwise, Tutuko, Bosco, Jacqueline, and everybody else on the chat, on the call, thanks for your time and thanks for being part of the session.
Thank you.
All right. So have a good afternoon.
Have a good afternoon, everyone, and have a great weekend.
All right. Cheers.